So the United States has a new plan for opening the Strait of Hormuz. Teamwork. Come on, guys. We can do this. Everybody together. A joint diplomatic military coalition led by the United States. No takers? Not yet? Okay. I mean, I get it. I do think this is probably the direction we're going to have to go, but we also haven't exactly been the best of friends to our allies around the world as of late. And that's putting it lightly. I mean, did you see what the German chancellor said about this war a couple days ago? Holy cow. And we'll get into it in a second, but if he's saying that in public, imagine what our allies are saying behind closed doors. So it's not a big shock that nobody's really chomping at the bit to sign up for this new U.S. project, but it's probably going to have to be something like this because we don't have a clear solution right now on opening and maintaining the Strait of Hormuz, and that is going to be a problem over the long term. Now, this new method was presented by the Wall Street Journal a couple days ago, where they say the administration is now asking other countries to join a new international coalition that would enable ships to navigate the waterway. The effort, called the Maritime Freedom Construct, was spelled out in an internal State Department cable sent to U.S. embassies on Tuesday that called on U.S. diplomats to press foreign governments into signing up. The U.S.-led coalition would share information, coordinate diplomatically, and enforce sanctions. I mean, put me in the camp of coalitions are good. I think this is a good direction to head in. We have made clear to a lot of our allies that we didn't need them, whether it's the White House or the Pentagon. I mean, I try to tune into as many of the Pentagon press conferences as I can, or even the hearings on Capitol Hill. And it seems like every chance some of our leaders get, we are denigrating our allies and talking them down about how we don't need them and they're not there when we do need them. So, probably not a big shock that there's not a line out the door of countries around the world saying, what can we do? How can we be of assistance right now? And it sounds like this new construct is actually asking for quite a bit. It's not just a matter of diplomatic coordination, but there might be a military aspect here as well. They quoted the actual cable saying, quote, "Your participation," and this is being sent to our embassies around the world to be shared with foreign countries, "your participation will strengthen our collective ability to restore freedom of navigation and protect the global economy. Collective action is essential to demonstrate unified resolve and impose meaningful cost on Iranian obstruction of transit through the strait." So this is, reading between the lines there, this is not a matter of once the war is done and we've got all these great peace deals and nobody's shooting each other, it'd be great to have you guys on board to make sure the strait remains open. This is, ability to restore freedom of navigation. This is getting us to the point where ships are interested in moving through that strait at all. I don't know how many are signing up for that. That's a risky endeavor right now, to say the least. They say while the Maritime Freedom Construct is not a military coalition, the cable instructs U.S. officials to ask foreign counterparts whether they would like to be a diplomatic and or military partner. The MFC would be a joint effort between the State Department and U.S. Central Command, according to the cable. State will serve as the diplomatic operations hub, while CENTCOM will provide real-time maritime domain awareness for commercial shipping and coordinate information sharing between partner militaries. Again, the big takeaway for me on this is the Strait of Hormuz is not going back to what it was. All right, the situation on February 27th where it was open. All right, it was an international waterway, still is an international waterway, but everybody was moving through, in and out, no problems. That is no longer reality. I don't know what it's going to look like 1, 3, 6, 12 months from now, but what you're seeing put in place right now, the organization behind the scenes, is the rest of the world preparing that it is not going back to that. And I think that's understandable. Iran now sees how quickly and how easily they can shut down the strait and how quickly and how easily they can enforce a pretty significant toll system on anybody moving through. They don't even have to shoot at anything in the strait. They just have to threaten it. So now that that is on the table, you have to expect that shipping companies, insurers, nations around the world are going to look at the strait in a very different manner. Now, in terms of the countries signing up or not signing up for this, to be clear, we haven't seen any public statements referencing this cable, but the German Chancellor Merz a couple days ago dropped some bombs about how he feels about the U.S. war in Iran, where he said the U.S. quite obviously went into this war without a strategy. He said, quote, "The Iranians are clearly stronger than expected, and the Americans clearly have no truly convincing strategy in the negotiations either. A whole nation is being humiliated by the Iranian leadership," end quote. Again, very close ally of the United States, Germany, right? Major NATO partner. And if that's what their leadership is willing to say in public, I think it just gives you an indication of how frustrated and fed up some of our allies are with the United States. That type of stuff would have been a bombshell if it had been on background, right? If this had been, sources close to MERS said they overheard him saying, or this is how he was feeling, that would have been crazy. To see this coming out in open reporting, like MERS openly saying it when the cameras are rolling, I think we've done some damage to those relationships, to say the least. So the idea that we're just going to go back to them right now and say, sign up for this alliance, there's going to have to be a lot in it for Germany. A lot more than just the strait will be open for a number of these countries to actually sign on and want to fight alongside the United States in this act that would be a military operation in opening the Strait of Hormuz. That's no joke. Now, Iran supposedly last week offered up a proposal to open the strait where they essentially said, we will open it as long as the United States removes their blockade. Oh, and we're not going to talk about nuclear. We'll kick that down the road. Not great. The U.S. doesn't look like the U.S. was on board with this. Reporting in the New York Times was that President Trump was not ready to agree to this at all. That's a good sign. Bad sign that Iran feels like they are still able to kind of exert a lot of influence and list their demands in these negotiations. Now, that might be changing because what we have right now is just this long-term blockade, and it's this weird waiting game. Like if it feels like not a lot has happened in the Iran war in the last 1-2 weeks, you're right. Because nothing has. Like, it's just a lot of talk. And there's not even direct talks between the U.S. and Iran. It's a lot of speculation of, well, maybe this will actually play out. Maybe this is the direction we're heading in. And we just kind of wait to see if the blockade will have the desired effect. But it's not just a matter of on Iran. It's, will the United States have the stomach to keep the blockade in effect while we see the impact to the U.S. and global economy? The Wall Street Journal, talking to this earlier today, said that the United States is preparing for a long-term operation to keep the blockade in place. Quote, in recent meetings, including a Monday discussion in the Situation Room, Trump opted to continue squeezing Iran's economy and oil exports by preventing shipping to and from its ports. He assessed that his other options, resume bombing or walk away from the conflict, carried more risk than maintaining the blockade. For now, Trump is comfortable with an indefinite blockade, which he wrote Tuesday on Truth Social, is pushing Iran towards a state of collapse. A senior U.S. official said the blockade is demonstrably crushing Iran's economy. It is straining to store its unsold oil and sparked fresh outreach by the regime to Washington. That's the Wall Street Journal framing is indefinite blockade, so that's not a direct quote from any U.S. officials, but you can kind of see how we're getting there, right? If we've carried out, 4 or 5 weeks of bombing, whatever it was, and we did not get Iran to capitulate and agree to our terms, I don't know that immediately jumping back into bombing is going to change that dynamic very quickly at all. Like, it might not be 4 weeks of bombing, it might be 8 or 12 or 16. You see how that goes? So we're trying the blockade, see if we can squeeze them out economically. That's not a short-term game. The pain will increase over time, and we're just kind of hoping that this is going to be enough to actually bring the Iranian regime to the table and concede to U.S. demands. That's not a given, however. We've got Suzanne Maloney, an Iran expert and vice president of the Brookings Institute Foreign Policy Program, saying, quote, Iran is calculating that its ability to withstand and circumvent the blockade outstrips the U.S. interest in preventing a wider energy crisis and potentially a global recession. A regime that slaughtered its own citizens to silence protests in January is fully prepared to impose economic hardships on them now. So we are really in this kind of weird spot where we're just kind of waiting to see who blinks first. And this is, for the first time, it seems like a war that could just drag on and on and on and on and on, because we've dialed it back. It's not continuous overhead aerial bombardment day in and day out. We still have a lot of resources pushed forward that could be deployed into Iran if necessary. No ground troops, right? There's still not nearly enough in the region to be able to do that. But we do have a lot of firepower there that could carry out strikes if we want. But if the idea here is we're going to blockade Iran until they give in to all of our demands, I don't know if that's going to be a week. What if that's 6 months, right? What if 6 months they come to the table and then we start talking and it's another 6 months? It just feels like we're watching this war expand in duration in real time. Now, the caveat to that is the hostilities have dialed back. So it's not nearly as kinetic now as it was during the peak of hostilities, but it does look like something that we're going to be involved with, maybe is the right way to put it, for a longer and longer period of time now than was initially expected. So we'll keep an eye on it, to say the least. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next time.